Collins, sorry, has really been able to give an overview of why we are here. And so just in the interest of time, Your Excellency, I would just like to introduce all my colleague PSs who are present here today, who have regulatory authorities under their state departments. PSs, please, if you could stand up so that we can very quickly introduce you. I'll start with PS Omolo, Internal Security and National Coordination. Our host here who oversees SECU, also Dr. Beatrice Inyangala of Higher Education. Bwana Shadrach Mwadime of Labor. Mr. Motari of Social Protection. Our Gen Z, Your Excellency, Jacob Fikirini of Youth Affairs. Anatu Gotea. We have Madam Rono of Parliamentary Affairs. She takes care of all the legislative issues for our government. We have Mr. Cyril Wangunda of Public Investment. Then we have our friend Ololtua of Tourism. Your Excellency, we say that Ololtua is a tourist attraction in itself. So he's a very good colleague of ours. Bwana Patrick Kilemi of Cooperatives, Asante Sana. PS Joel or Arumanyong of Public Works. Dr. Beatrice Esther Moria. Dr. Esther Moria of TVETS, Pole Sana Daktari. Dr. Muhwana Omwami of Industrialization. Honorable Nixon Koril Generali of Lands. Your Excellency was telling Generali, ameona 10,000 acres, asikuje kutukatakatia. We want it just as it is. When he was here, I was very excited about all the land he saw here in Kitui. We have Dr. Oluga of Health, Medical Services. We call him PS Washa. Mr. Stephen Isaboke of Broadcasting and Communications. Madam Betsy Jage of Fisheries and Blue Economy. We have, of course, Engineer Dr. Ngeno of Mutua Climate Change Environment. Mr. Julius Korir of Water. My predecessor, Bwana Kimutai, he is now in mining. And Your Excellency, there's a lot of minerals here in Kitui. So I'm always pushing my colleague PS atutolee kwa ground hizi minerals zote. We have PS wa Mahasla, Madam Susan Mangeni of MSME. Karibu Susan. We have PS Mugambi of Forestry. Karibu Sana. We have Dr. Imbunya of Public Service. Karibu Sana. We have Mheshimiwa Abdisalan of National Coordination. Karibu Sana. And last but not least, we have Madam Regina Ombam of Trade, who we work very closely with. Karibu Sana. Your Excellency, we also have chairpersons of regulatory authorities and agencies. If you can all stand up, I won't be able to introduce all of you because of interest of time, but please, all the chairs of regulatory authorities and agencies, tafadhali musimame. Asanteni sana. We also have CEOs of regulatory authorities and agencies. Please, CEOs, if you can also just stand up. Let's clap for them, tafadhali. Your Excellencies, Head of Public Service always reminds us, hii ndio serikali kwa ground. And these are the people who make sure that we interface with the citizens in terms of ensuring that they are safe and they are able to go around their daily chores without any issues. We also have cooperation secretaries of the regulatory authorities and agencies. Please, cooperation secretaries, you can stand up also and be recognized. Cooperation secretaries. Asanteni sana. I believe we also have heads of internal audits of regulatory authorities. No? Yes, a few of them. Excellent internal auditors. And we have independent directors of the RAAs as well. Are they here? Independent directors? Yes. They also came. They are the ones who oversee their institutions. Your Excellency, thank you very much. This is the team that is here. We would like to give a special thank you to the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service. He has really put us together as PSAs and regulatory authorities and kept us on our toes to ensure that as we regulate, we also enforce with a human face. We ensure that we don't overburden our citizens with too much bureaucracy and licensing. And most importantly, Your Excellency, the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service always reminds us to enforce fairly, but also very firmly to ensure that our citizens don't just feel us on the ground as government, but that they enjoy our services, because many of them also pay for our services as we regulate them. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to say hello. We wish you a lovely 3 days in Kitui County. Na tafadhali padiem yenu yote ibaki Kitui. Tafadhali. Yote ibaki hapa Kitui. Ndio tujenge our local economy. Thank you very much. God bless you, and we wish you a fantastic day. Asanteni sana.
I think he deserves more claps than that, because he's the host, and you might not know, because of the vastness of this land, a snake bite, the PS is the right person to call. Just while holding your brief PS, there are two cadres of people that have not been introduced. That is the chairpersons, commissioners, and CEOs of independent constitutional commissions. You can be upstanding. We notice you've also come in numbers so that we can also recognize you. Thank you very much. And to the staffers from the Executive Office of the President, both from the Office of the President under the Chief of Staff and the Head of Public Service, and the Office of His Excellency the Deputy President, you can be upstanding so that they see you've also come in numbers. Thank you very much. Just to remind you, the theme for today, for these 3 days is consistent measurement and evaluation of real regulatory impact, emphasis on the ground. And for you to be able to access this program, when you registered, you can be able to access the app of Eventify. Please go to the app where you can be able to access the program, and you can be able to know what will happen, because everything is being posted there real time. Please go to the app of Eventify for you to appreciate what comes next, and for you to note that where the program and where we're headed, because today we were not able to print all the programs because of austerity measures, but pardon us, because technology has been able to come in for us. And as you notice, our chief guest is that the Chief of Staff and the Head of Public Service has done many meetings of this kind. And people here today are wondering why this meeting is physical, because all his meetings are normally virtual. We've done more than 20 virtual meetings in the last about 6 months. But due to the necessity of this event, this is one of the few ones that we've done a physical meeting. To welcome us now properly, I wish to call upon the chairman of the Council of Southeastern Kenya University, Professor Crispus Kiamba, to give us a welcome note on behalf of the host institution as we proceed. Welcome very much, Professor.
Before you do the clap, let's get this behind us. My name is Dr. Ndari. I'm here to represent our chair, Professor Crispus Kiamba, who was unable to come. So for those who are wondering, why is this very young professor? I'm not yet there, but I'll get there soon. I was seated with a neighbor who confessed that they already sent their per diem home, and I asked them, are you going to pay for your hotel? They say there's free, sir. But that's a good thing. It's going to happen, and please leave as much money in Seku as you can. Since I was sent by our chairman, please allow me to just read his speech. Your Excellency, the Deputy President, the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, distinguished heads of regulatory authorities and agencies, I've seen my peers is here, Dr. Beatrice Nyangala. If I don't mention your name, maybe there'll be a show cause at some point. I've seen my friend, we grew up together, Stevie Saboke. Thank you very much. Esteemed guests, on your extreme left is members of SECU. Please, members of SECU, rise on your feet so that you greet the people and welcome them. Thank you very much. Let me ask in particular for you to see our Vice Chancellor, Professor Douglas Shitanda. Professor is the one who has been working with the office of the organizers for this event to ensure that everything is seamless. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Your Excellency, it's my great honor and privilege to welcome you all to this important national forum, the third annual Revitalization and Re-energization of Regulatory Authorities and Agencies Conference. On behalf of Council, management, staff, students of Southeastern Kenya University, and the entire SECU community, we'd like to extend our warmest greetings and appreciation to each one of you for taking time to be part of this very historic event in our compound. We wish at the very outset to sincerely acknowledge and appreciate the Chief of Staff and the Head of Public Service for convening this important event, conference, on this very ground where we normally hold our graduation. We are especially honored by the presence of Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Professor Kitui Kindiki. Your commitment to strengthen governance systems and enhance service delivery continues to inspire confidence and progress across our nation. Your Excellency, this conference comes at a critical time when the role of regulatory authorities and agencies is more pivotal than ever. In a rapidly evolving socioeconomic landscape, effective regulation is not only essential for ensuring compliance and accountability, but also for fostering innovation, safeguarding public interest, and promoting sustainable development. At SECU, we are proud to host this conference and provide the venue and environment that enables such important national event to take place. We affirm our commitment to bridging academia, policy, and practice in support of national development and good governance. Ladies and gentlemen, as you participate in this conference, allow me to extend a special invitation to you, in particular to support the local economy by utilizing the excellent hotel facilities around this place. I am reminded that our own guest house is full for tonight, but next time you're around this place, please look for this facility and utilize it. Number two, please take time to enjoy the rich local cuisine and experience the vibrant Akamba culture, including learning a few Kamba salutations. I learned mine this morning. Let me try to say it. Mwe aseo. I did a little bit louder. You know, we need to learn something. Mwe aseo. Yeah, you got it right. Number three, I'd like to encourage you to tour our beautiful main campus. Where we are is the main campus. Interact with our students and faculty and explore opportunities for collaboration. We also warmly welcome you to partner with us on research, innovation, and development initiatives that can transform this region and our economy. Your Excellency, the region stands on the threshold of transformation. In the near future, this area will host a large-scale gala goat production. Can I repeat that again? Yes, large-scale gala goat production and a major solar electric power initiative with ambition to produce at least 10% of Kenya's energy needs, while powering industrial and manufacturing growth in this region. This vision aligns strongly with the National Better Agenda of Sustainable Development, energy security, and regional economic empowerment. And we invite all stakeholders present to be part of this journey. And finally, I encourage all participants to visit the SECU exhibition booth that is right on my left. I have done my part, and when I went there, I found that there are many good things, including honey. Yes, I said Kitui honey, but I put a disclaimer here that we have limited quantities for today. Please do not take more than 10 bottles. We desire to sell about 200 of them, 2,000 of them. Please come and visit that booth. There are a lot to learn from that end. In closing, I once again express our sincere gratitude to the conveners, partners, and all participants who have made this event possible. Once again, welcome to SECU. Our mantra in SECU is from arid to green. Maybe you can help me say that again. From arid to green. Our desire is not just to bring change, but to bring a complete transformation. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. All of us now feel welcome to SEPU. And it is at that point that I wish to welcome on stage PS Beatrice Nyangala to give keen remarks. Then you may proceed to welcome the Chief of Staff and the Head of Public Service. Karibu sana, Madam PS.
Our chief guest, Your Excellency, the Deputy President, Professor Kindiki, our Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service, Honorable Felix Kosgei, my colleague PSs, chairs and CEOs of all regulatory authorities and agencies, good morning. Let me also add my voice as the State Department that oversights all universities to welcome you to the Southeastern Kenya University. Do you feel welcome? Do you feel at home? Good. This university is located in the center of the semi-arid and arid lands of our country. And we recognize that these lands form just about 80% of the country. This therefore echoes the importance of this university in terms of science, research, and innovation. We are looking upon SECU University to lead innovations that will advance our agenda in terms of dryland agriculture and natural resource management. And I can assure you that we are putting all the resources that this university requires in terms of manpower, in terms of infrastructure, and skills and knowledge for it to lead this agenda. But most importantly, your convening in this university has a deeper meaning. Many years ago, all of us, I believe, walked out of a university with degrees and the power to do all that appertains to that degree. And subsequently, for each and every one of us gathered in this room, our president, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, graciously gave us an opportunity to serve in his government, to deliver for our people. And so, we reflect on the power of education, that education that you got in an institution like this. How is it helping you to make a difference in the institution in which you serve? Because it has to be an education for something, It cannot just be an education for papers. What are the structures you've put in place? And are they functioning? Are they delivering what they're supposed to deliver? The officers that serve under you, they have various interests. They are a diverse group. How are you managing those interests and keeping them focused on the core mandate of the organization you serve? I know that we are all doing our best. But again, best is not best until the results speak for you. Excellency, Head of Public Service, I speak for all of us here today when I say that we wholeheartedly embrace the objectives of this conference. We have come with an open mind to share, to learn, and I know that we shall leave here invigorated, motivated to push the boundaries, and the results will speak for themselves when we convene again. I thank you. I was feeling like a guest because Kiprono was doing such a good job. I thought he was going to give some buzz lines from my remarks. But, but again, there's a lesson here. We learn more from doing than from being told. Can we all stand? Can we all stand? Your Excellency, you may sit. Okay, I would want us to invite Hopes in a special manner. Let us rub our hands. Rub, 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 rub. Okay, this is different. Okay, give me 3 fingers. Shake 3 fingers for our Head of Public Service. Now please touch your cheek. 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 Can you touch your cheek? Touch your cheek. Cheek. Touch your cheek. Touch your cheek. Okay, you see, we do more from what we see, not what we are told. You all got it right, but you are looking at me. I'm like, touch your cheek, touch your cheek. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Jangala. Although I think we need to meet in the office after this for setting me up because I can be fired for asking my boss to stand. So before I'm fired, I have to deal with you. Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, the Honorable Professor Kitui Kindiki, all Principal Secretaries present, all chairs of boards and chief executive officers of regulatory authorities and agencies present, all chairs and members of commissions present, all members of the standing committees of regulatory authorities and agencies present, all distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency, allow me to warmly welcome you to the 3rd Annual Regulatory Authorities and Agencies Conference, convened at Southeastern Kenya University, Kwavonza, Kitui County. We are deeply honored by your presence, which underscores the high-level attention that your office continues to accord to the performance of government systems and institutions. Through your convening authority, sustained follow-up, and engagement with ministries, departments, and agencies, your office has played a critical role in unlocking regulatory bottlenecks, reinforcing coordination across sectors, and ensuring that implementation remains firmly aligned to national priorities. In this regard, Your Excellency, your leadership has been instrumental in strengthening the linkage between regulatory action and the delivery of tangible, measurable outcomes for the citizens. Your Excellency, 3 years ago, we undertook a deliberate and candid examination of the regulatory space across government. What emerged was a system that, while well-intentioned, was not functioning optimally. We found fragmentation of mandates with multiple regulators operating within the same sectors without sufficient coordination. There were overlaps that created uncertainty for businesses and citizens, and gaps that left critical areas insufficiently regulated. In many instances, regulatory processes contributed to delays in approvals, slowed down service delivery, and imposed avoidable compliance burdens. Investors were often required to seek approvals from multiple agencies for a single activity, sometimes with conflicting requirements. Inspections were at times duplicative, enforcement actions inconsistent, and engagement with the public uneven. These challenges had direct and visible consequences on livelihoods, on ease of doing business, and on public confidence in government institutions. Most critically, there was limited measurement of whether regulatory actions were translating into real improvements on the ground. Your Excellency, these findings were grounded in a structured, evidence-based assessment that allowed us to interrogate how regulatory institutions were executing their mandates and where the gaps lay. This scientific and methodical approach informed the establishment of the revitalization and re-energization platform, designed as a coordinated response to governance challenges directly affecting citizens, businesses, and the overall government performance. While regulators performed the core focus of this intervention, the platform was deliberately broadened to include other critical actors within the governance ecosystem. These include the audit space, whose role in oversight, accountability, and performance assurance is essential in reinforcing institutional effectiveness and ensuring that corrective actions are sustained. Within this framework, regulatory authorities and agencies were specifically identified as catalysts and stimulants for positive change. By virtue of their mandate, regulators oversee implementing agencies, enforce standards, and interact directly with citizens, businesses, and markets. Their position at the intersection of policy and implementation makes them a powerful lever for improving service delivery and restoring public confidence. Your Excellency, in advancing this work, my office has been guided by the responsibility assigned under Executive Order Number 1 of 2025 to ensure the overall efficiency and performance of government. The campaign on revitalization and re-energization of RAs was therefore designed as a whole-of-government effort anchored on clear accountability and sustained coordination. This campaign targets key actors across the governance chain, beginning with principal secretaries who serve as accounting officers with oversight responsibility over regulatory authorities and agencies. It extends to the 39 standing committees established within state departments, which have been tasked with ensuring that the objectives of the campaign gain traction, are sustained, and translate into measurable improvements. At the center of this effort are the 127 regulatory authorities and agencies, whose leadership is responsible for the day-to-day execution of regulatory mandates and for translating policy intent into practical outcomes on the ground. Your Excellency, the journey over the past 3 years has been deliberate, and progressive. We began by restoring clarity of mandates and expectations. We then moved to strengthening regulatory tools, improving coordination across institutions, and deepening engagement with stakeholders. Today, we stand at a defining point in that journey. The question before us is no longer whether systems are in place, but whether those systems are producing results that can be seen, measured, and felt. This is the context in which this third conference is convened under the theme Consistent Measurement and Evaluation of Real Regulatory Impact on the Ground. This theme calls upon all of us to move from activity to impact, from process to outcomes, and from intention to evidence. Your Excellency, regulatory authorities and agencies remain one of the most visible expressions of government at work. It is through their actions that citizens experience order, fairness, safety, and predictability in their daily lives. When regulators function efficiently and in a coordinated manner, they stimulate economic activity, facilitate investment, and protect public interest. When they do not, the effects are immediate and widely felt. It is therefore imperative that regulatory action consistently demonstrates that government is working and working effectively for its people. Your Excellency, as we consolidate the gains made under this campaign, we are now entering the next phase of this journey. The intention going forward is for regulatory authorities and agencies to take full stewardship of this agenda. Regulators are expected to increasingly self-regulate, sustain the momentum of reform, and take ownership of strengthening coordination, accountability, and performance within their respective sectors. In this regard, they are expected not to drop the ball, but to ensure that the regulatory space remains strong, responsive, and impactful. It's also envisaged that the regulators themselves will take the lead in organizing future annual convenings as part of institutionalizing this platform and embedding continuous improvement within the system. Your Excellency, as we commence this conference, we do so with a clear sense of purpose and responsibility. This platform provides an opportunity to reflect on progress, interrogate our approaches, and refine the tools that will enable us to deliver measurable results consistently. I encourage all participants to engage openly, draw from evidence and experience, and remain focused on practical solutions that can be implemented and sustained. With those few remarks, Your Excellency, and I want to really thank you for finding time to come all the way from Nairobi to Kitui. I know, Your Excellency, you were keen to join us in Eldoret last year. But due to the timing of the conference, it was so close to Christmas, and I think all of us had decided to have other plans. But all the same, a strong team that you sent, about 5 cabinet secretaries came, and they represented you ably. Your Excellency, it is now my honor to invite you to give your keynote address and officially open this 3rd annual RRS conference. Thank you, and karibu sana, Your Excellency.
Please be seated. Please be seated. Hopes you have done better than Beatrice. She told us that we learn more by what we see, but not what we hear. She forgot to invite her boss. And even when she was reminded, she went back to the podium and said and did so many things, except inviting the head of public service. So I was asking PS Raymond, so what did Beatrice go back to do? Because she did not invite Felix at the end. Yes, it is true, Hopes. I wanted to be with you on the second of this kind of forum last year. But I didn't go for early Christmas. So let me start by thanking this great institution, SECU, for hosting this very important forum. I am very emotional whenever I have occasion to visit an academic institution, because I spent quite a big chunk of my working life early in this kind of a setting. And sometimes I wonder how I ended up leaving a wonderful place like this one. Head of Public Service, the leadership that is here, PSs, chairs, CEOs of regulatory authorities and agencies, the council, vice chancellor, staff of this university, and all the other dignitaries present. I am pleased to join you this morning at your annual third Regulatory Authorities and Agencies Conference. At this juncture in our country, as we continue to advance and revitalize the ecosystem which is responsible for regulating the interface between government and our citizens. I commend the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service for steering the continuous structured engagements with regulators. Thank you very much, Felix, for fostering candid reflections, strengthened and sharpened alignment with our national priorities, particularly our driving paradigm of the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. On a daily basis, I hear the voices of Kenyans across our country, from Kisumu, where fishermen and traders are demanding for clean, pollution-free water, to Eldoret, where farmers and transporters are looking for affordable and predictable fuel, to Mombasa, where businesses call for fair standards and fair competition, to Garissa and Turkana, where communities emphasize on safe access to safe water and environmental protection, Nairobi, where wananchi expects safe buildings, reliable services, and orderly urban systems. I'm sure even here in Kitui, the call for responsive regulatory environment echoes. Across all these regions, the message is clear and consistent that Kenyans want a government that delivers, that protects and serves them efficiently, and creates a fair and predictable environment for opportunity. In many respects, the government that citizens encounter is you, the regulators. Regulatory authorities and agencies are the most visible and tangible expression of government in the daily lives of the people. You exercise statutory power to license, set standards, enforce compliance, inspect, approve, and sometimes take action. In the process, influencing markets, safeguarding livelihoods, and protecting the welfare of millions of Kenyans. Today, as has been said, the government consists of 127 regulatory authorities and agencies operating under various state departments, each with far-reaching authority across the economy and society. Consequently, millions of daily interactions between citizens and government occur through these agencies. As such, No citizen should have to ask, where is government? Because government is present wherever rules are set, standards enforced, safety assured, and fairness is upheld. Colleagues in government, this reality places a profound responsibility on all of us, because when regulatory action is weak, inconsistent, or compromised, government itself appears weak. And when regulatory processes are opaque or unfair, government is perceived as unjust. But when regulation is firm, fair, and predictable, government earns trust, credibility, and legitimacy. This is why failures in regulation are so costly, because when buildings collapse, when water bodies are polluted, when businesses shut down due to multiple taxation, when no manner of regulatory ills affect citizens, they reflect a breakdown in the everyday touch points through which citizens judge government. The Constitution provides guidance on the obligations of the public service, of which the regulators are a part. Under Article 232, the public service generally is required to be responsive, accountable, transparent, and efficient. And this must be demonstrated through the actions of regulators who set norms, establish and enforce standards, and ensure order in the functioning of the economy and society. This is why the theme of this conference, consistent measurement and evaluation of real regulatory impact on the ground, anchored on evidence, impact, and accountability, demands a decisive shift from reporting activities to delivering results, from process to outcomes, and from intention to measurable impact in the lives of citizens. Colleagues, we must be able to show, using credible evidence, that regulatory actions are reducing risks, improving compliance, enhancing fairness in markets, lowering the cost of doing business, and ultimately improving the quality of life for the people of Kenya. At the same time, we must ensure that the presence of 127 regulators translates into coordinated strength, clarity, and efficiency, rather than duplication, confusion, and delay. Today, we are called upon to embed a culture of evidence-based decision-making, continuous monitoring and measurable performance in our operations. Regulatory authorities and agencies are challenged to adopt clear indicators, credible data systems, and regular evaluation mechanisms to ensure that regulatory actions translate into tangible outcomes. Ultimately, our success will not be measured by the number of regulations issued or inspections conducted, but rather by the real improvements experienced by citizens through safer products, fairer markets, reduced cost of doing business, and enhanced public trust in government. The effectiveness of government will largely be a reflection of the effectiveness of regulators. Colleagues, I also wish to emphasize the importance of visibility in regulatory work. It is not enough that you are working. Your work must be seen, felt, and experienced by the citizens you serve. Government action must be clear, consistent, and visible in the public space, reflecting the seriousness and discipline with which we execute our mandate. We cannot allow the narrative to be shaped by the naysayers when real and meaningful work is being undertaken across our institutions. I therefore urge you to ensure that your actions are clear and visible, that your impact is felt on the ground. I urge us to shift from the conservative, philosophical approach to regulation to a more responsive and citizen-centric stance in recognition of the impact of our actions and decisions on public trust. Let us commit to delivering regulation that is firm, fair, visible, and impactful. I think I can stop there and declare the 3rd Annual Regulatory Authorities and Agencies Conference officially open. Thank you very much. The reason I have decided to stop there is because I want to listen a little bit on some of the presentations so that I maximize on this rare occasion I have. I was telling Felix that since I left academia some years ago, almost 20 years ago, I rarely get an opportunity to speak refreshing things and to get enriched. The kind of things I do on a daily basis are quite complicated things, you know, and the discussions are quite down here and difficult. So when I have a moment like this one, I savor it. So I will hang around for about an hour and listen to a few more speakers because I have seen wonderful people here, and I'm sure the resource persons who are going to speak have ideas that we can pick from. I've even seen my professional senior, Professor Makau Mutua here, who in 5 minutes can write a book. So please a round of applause for Professor Makau. I think he's one of the most successful sons of Kenya. Very humble, very measured, but Professor Makau, we may not know because we are at home, but I know the kind of work you've done around the world. And I still have very fond memories of our days in the third world approaches to international law in many places. And all the other colleagues, it's good to reconnect. I look forward to listening a little bit. And before I forget and get into trouble, like Beatrice almost did, I bring you greetings and good wishes from our leader, President William Samoei Ruto. Thank you very much and have a good morning.
Another round of applause for His Excellency, the Deputy President. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for those very, very inspiring remarks. And now we feel energized to be able to start our conference and go on to serve the citizens, founded on our agenda, which is the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Your Excellency, before we go to the next session, please allow me to recognize some of the leaders from the National Assembly that accompanied you to this function. We have Honorable Kawaya, Member of National Assembly for Mwala. Makofi tafadhali. Karibu sana, Mheshimiwa Kawaya. We have Honorable John Bwire, MP for Taveta. Makofi kwake tafadhali. And we also have Honorable Mohammed Abdi, the MP for Lafe constituency. Karibu sana. Your Excellency, we also have one of our local leaders here, a former minority leader of Kitui County Assembly and member of County Assembly, former, for this area called Kwavonza. He's called Honorable John Kisangao. Here locally, Your Excellency, we know him as Mbake. So he came to welcome you to his ward. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And now I invite Collins to show us the way into our next session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now that the session is officially open, I wish to call on stage two people, that is Dr. Linda Musumba and Alex Mwaniki, who will be taking us through the key features of the revitalization and re-energization of the RAS campaign. Dr. Linda Musumba is the head of department in the Audit, Legal and Regulatory Compliance Department, an office domicile within the Office of the Chief of Staff and the Head of Public Service. And Mr. Alex Mwaniki is the Director Regulatory Compliance within the Department of Audit, Legal and Regulatory Compliance. Please, you may take up the stage. You can have the two microphones so that you can be able to proceed. Karibuni sani. Mukaribishe kwa makofi.
Your Excellency, the Deputy President, all protocols observed. We'll make a short presentation with my colleague, the Director of Regulatory Compliance, Mr. Alex Mwaniki, on the reason for why we're here, the details of what our Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service had indicated earlier, just so that you can be able to understand a little bit of why we're here.
All right, thank you very much, Your Excellency. We'll go quickly. It's a presentation of why the revitalization and re-energization of RAS, and we hope the presentation can be put on the screen, please, so that we quickly follow. And Daktari, why did the Head of Public Service initiate this campaign in the year 2023?
Essentially, Alex, the Head of Public Service, when he joined the office, of course, upon his ascendance to that office, one of the things that he did was to commence his tour of duty by carrying out a series of studies. And what he did was to initiate studies. And among the findings from those studies was the fact that regulators, regulatory authorities and agencies are very key to ensuring the achievement of the promise that had been made by His Excellency the President and this administration to Kenyans. And therefore, that finding led him to think about regulators and the space that they can occupy to be able to ensure that there is achievement of those promises that had been made during that campaign. And of course, to address the inertia in the performance of regulators, we've always had regulators for the longest time, and he felt that there was more that could be done to be able to ensure that premier service delivery, which is a core goal of this administration, would be able to be achieved. Then the other thing that he thought about was to be able to capacitate all the regulatory authorities and agencies to be able to do their work and achieve their mandates, which are really, really core. Because if regulators achieve their mandates, then you're going to see Kenyans appreciative of the fact that they have been reached or felt by government, given that regulators handle very core services and duties in this country. Then obviously, to ensure accountability for citizens, so that I think you indicated earlier on, I think Collins mentioned, NEMA. So all of us, when we leave our houses in the morning, we experience either a good circumstance or situation in terms of rubbish disposal, and those sorts of things that Kenyans have habitually complained about. So it was to make sure that those things that press Kenyans, they are sorted out as quickly as possible. But Alex, perhaps you could be able to let His Excellency the Deputy President know who the actors in this campaign are.
All right, and thank you, Daktari. And I have been assisted by our boss, the Head of Public Service, who did indicate in his remarks who these actors are. But I'll quickly run through the next slide, where we have the Head of State and the messages that the Head of State has given to all of us right at the helm. And then we have from our office, the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service. Next slide. And under the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, we now have 40 Principal Secretaries. These are the 40 Principal Secretaries that have regulatory authorities and agencies in their State Department, cutting across every sector that there is in the Republic, from the health sector, from the aviation sector, environment, food, agriculture, name it. So we have the 40 Principal Secretaries, and these 40 Principal Secretaries have appointed 40 standing committees. The standing committees, Your Excellency, really just then assist the PS to follow up on the various things that have come from the head of public service and to ensure the various returns that have been sent to the head of public service are analyzed. And it's also the point where if there are any issues that a regulator is facing, this is the first point that they would go to before then being escalated upwards. Now, we have 129 chairpersons of boards of regulatory authorities and agencies. And below them, we have 129 chief executive officers who are all present here, 129 corporation secretaries, 129 heads of internal audit. And these 5 categories, Your Excellency, are important in closing that loop. So you have a head of internal audit who understand what is this campaign asking? What does it mean to audit just more than the financial resources that we are used to from the heads of internal audit? Are they now auditing that you have a mandate under your enabling instrument to perform certain points, and are you doing it? And finally, we do have hundreds of implementing agencies, Daktari, and of course, the public that we all serve to ensure that they get the premier services that this government has promised the public. Now, moving on, Daktari, what are the milestones or what are the strategies that the head of public service or the office of the head of public service has used in this campaign? What it is that what has the office done? What scientific ways have been used, and what is being done as we speak to ensure that that vision of His Excellency the President is achieved? Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Clearly from the figures that you have narrated there, quite a number of people, and I think in short we have 129 regulatory authorities and agencies. So among the strategies, the first one, of course, is circulars and guidelines. I believe members in this room, all regulators, our principal secretaries, and our chairpersons and CEOs, the corporation secretaries and heads of internal audit have received circulars that have been sent by the head of public service, informing them of what they need to know, bringing to their attention things that they need to take into account. Accompanying those circulars have been guidelines that have been produced within the office under the direction of the head of public service, which explain, for example, the biannual reporting tool that you normally fill every 6 months to be able to clock your performance. Those are some of the guidelines that you have received to be able to know what to do. Others are sensitization and training. We've had a number of trainings where we've been able to call regulators. You remember meeting in Nairobi, in Kisumu, to be able to be trained on how to fill the biannual reporting tool. Of course, stakeholder engagement by regulatory authorities and implementing agencies. As regulators, you, of course, carry out sensitizations and also you hold stakeholder engagement. Some of you have called on the public service, and we've been able to come to some of your meetings where you've been able to engage with your stakeholders as you bring to their attention the expectations that there are. The biannual reporting tool, one which Alex will speak about in more details, Your Excellency. This is a tool that has got parameters and markers. It is still what we would call a simple tool because I believe that in time there can be a more complex tool developed to be able to measure even deeper parameters. But for now, at the start of the campaign, the head of public service thought we should use a simpler tool just to be able to align the thinking and begin measuring things. So one of the things that has been interesting for us is how to be able to measure, how to cause measurement across different entities doing different things, but nonetheless still making an attempt to be able to measure. Then we've also been able to do tracking and monitoring. Internally, of course, the regulatory authorities and agencies have their own internal methods to be able to track and monitor. The same with the standing committees. At the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, we are very keen. He's actually very keen, being a scientist himself, on tracking and monitoring. So we have a lot of tools in the office that we use to be able to measure and track. I think the majority of you will attest to the fact that when you have not handed in your report on time, we have called you. And how do we know? It is because we are tracking, we are monitoring everything that is being done under this program. And then, of course, the annual regulatory authorities and agencies conference, this being the third, for which we are grateful to be able to meet all of us. Another thing, Your Excellency, the head of public service has been keen on meeting all actors together, to be able to meet our principal secretaries who lead within the state departments, meet them at the same time or together with the standing committees, at the same time with the corporation secretaries, the CEOs, and the heads of internal audit, because it's a loop. If you call only the PSs at all times, no doubt there are meetings which will be exclusive for the PSs. There'll be those that will be exclusive for the different, but often it is good to be able to call them together, as the head of public service has pointed out, so that there's alignment and the loop is closed. The information is communicated at the same time and people receive it at the same time in the same way. So Alex, perhaps you could maybe draw attention. What are some of the milestones from the efforts that have been made by all these people who are gathered in this room?
All right. Some of the milestones, and I'll go very quickly through these ones, is that there was an exercise at the beginning of this administration where the office reviewed the executive order to isolate all institutions that carry out regulatory mandates or roles and onboard them to this campaign. You will note, Your Excellency, that according to the SCAC categorization, we have about 78, about 80 regulators that have been categorized as regulators by SCAC. But you have also seen, Your Excellency, that the list in this campaign is 129. So that exercise involved going through the statute of every agency that we have in government and picking out, of course, there's the obvious 78, 80 that are regulators, but then beyond that, we have a whole lot of others who have a mandate that is regulatory in nature. They set standards, they superintend certain things, they enforce certain things. They have not been classified as a regulator, but they do have a role. That was the first task. And that is the people who are presented in this room. We've had a challenge sometime, and I'll speak to it shortly, when the person you're speaking to as a regulator indicates, but I'm not a regulator. And we have to open the act that establishes them together with them. And we read, let's go to section 4C. And that right there is what the head of public service is looking for. Because the moment you then don't pay attention to that provision that gives you powers under the law to either, cancel, register, license, and so on, then we'll have a problem. The loop will not be closed. Of course, the sensitization of the RAS, Dr. You have spoken to that in detail, and then spotlighting performance and achievement of the core regulatory mandate as an integral part of daily operations. You will note that there was a ceremony in December where the head of public service recognized some of these regulators because of exemplary performance. And I think it's something that is going to then be happening every year as he guides us on certain parameters that the office has established. Then the focus here really is on premier service delivery as the deliverable for regulatory action. You will note, Your Excellency, the program is rich with sessions that the regulators will be speaking themselves on what it is that they have done to ensure that there's premier service delivery to the Kenyans. But those are just 4 of the milestones. And Daktari, would you maybe speak to the other 4, because they are quite a number?
Very quickly, was the development of a framework for the working of the regulatory authorities and agencies space. That is the tool itself. To make that tool, we were able to have feedback from some of the regulators who were able to tell us their thoughts, as well as from the principal secretaries. We sent out a questionnaire just to be able to get feedback on that. And then today, Your Excellency, there's the regular self-evaluation as a mechanism for managing and progressing performance. This is where you ask regulators to be able to evaluate themselves based on certain parameters. Being the 3rd year and with about the 4th or the 5th biannual report, we track from the last 2 that a regulator has been able to hand in and see whether you rated yourself at 5 in the last 3rd one. The last one, perhaps you rated yourself at 7, and this time maybe you've given yourself an 8, and just see that growth and how it, how it progresses. Then the annual RAS conference, this being a very wonderful space for regulators to be able to have peer review and be able to speak to one another. There has emerged, of course, a community now of the regulators who know one another, and they're able to cross-check and find out more about what each is doing. We've also seen some regulators collaborating, being able to work jointly because their mandates either overlap, that's a solution to the overlap, or their mandates are complementary, and therefore working together has been a good thing. Something that the head of public service alluded to, the element of self-direction, hoping that, as he said, in the conferences, from this conference going forward, that there can be an element of the regulators themselves also taking charge of themselves to be able to come together and see how they can be able to move together. So I think lastly, Alex, perhaps you could be able to talk about what to look forward for in this fourth campaign, the fourth year, entering the fourth year of the campaign.
All right, as we move to the next slide, the things we are looking forward to as we enter the fourth year of this campaign, we are pressing on to Singapore, Your Excellency. We are pressing on to Singapore. What we are trying to look for, what we are trying to achieve is the visibility of the norms and the standards that you set as regulators, a facilitative posture. The head of public service from the beginning of this campaign, Your Excellency, has had a consistent message. Yes, you are a regulator. Wewe ndio mwenye kiboko. When something goes wrong, you're the one to come and, and punish, so to speak. But as a regulator, you must also then be seen to be facilitative. So it's a thin balance, Your Excellency, that the regulators have been urged to achieve, in as much as Natua Kiboko, I'm also facilitating compliance. So that is not when a regulator comes on site, when they see a NEMA vehicle, or they see an NCA vehicle, or they see the next vehicle, then people are running and scrambling. Or they see Nakada. I think those are the ones we are more used to, people running when a Nakada vehicle passes. But it is to be more facilitative in as much as we are looking at enforcement. So that balance, to achieve that balance of facilitating, and of course ensuring there's compliance and enforcement, what we look for in the fourth year is enhanced stakeholder engagement. We will not move far if we are not moving with our stakeholders. And that alliance has to be built for compliance. This is to implementing agencies and the public. The third is for us to develop acting reporting tools. We note, Your Excellency, Head of Public Service, some of the feedback that we have received is that some of the RAS have now started issuing biannual reports to the implementing agencies. The same way that the Head of Public Service requires you to submit your biannual reports, the feedback from yourselves is that we have also developed custom-made certain forms that require our implementing agencies to return, and of course, the issue of requires strict reporting, thereof. So yes, you have submitted the forms, but are you following up to ensure that everyone has complied in terms of the returns that you then seek from them? And of course, all actors to take lead. And again, I say again, Your Excellency, the Head of Public Service invited, particularly from the agencies, 6 people. You have the chairperson of the agency, you have the chairperson of the independent board committee, or the committee that deals with the core mandate. You have the CEO, you have the corporation secretary, and the head of internal audit. So even if a chairperson was to leave because the end of term or for whatever reason, there's a board member who's there. If the CEO is to leave, you have the corporation secretary, who is again the link between management and the board. You have your internal audit present. And these core heads are the ones to take the lead and to cascade whatever needs to be cascaded down to everybody else. And the last, as we look forward to the fourth, again, as the Head of Public Service indicated in his remarks, is the challenge of self-direction. The challenge of self-direction to ensure that from now till the fourth conference, we have a small committee formed by yourselves that would run this campaign in collaboration with the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service.
Alex, perhaps maybe you could just, if Collins allows me, he's supposed to then take you, Your Excellency, through the results of the biannual reporting tools that have just recently been returned by the regulators. So if you kindly allow.
Thank you. This will be a shorter presentation, Your Excellency. Most of it has been covered from that initial presentation. If we go to the next PowerPoint presentation, Silas, would be grateful so that we quickly run through this. And just to, are we on? Okay. So these are the biannual reports that were developed by the Office of the Head of Public Service. They have moved from the first edition in 2024. There was a second edition, and there was now a third edition, which is what has been analyzed. And I'll quickly just take you through the slides to give that report. So we'll just move to the next slide. Oh, thank you. So again, the foundation of these reports began in May 2024, circular issued by the Head of Public Service. The returns that we are looking at were returns that were submitted in October and 31st of March, so they are biannual. And once the agencies do these returns, they send them to their standing committees at the State Department. And again, the dates for those given for the reports, the first biannual reports, 2025, they were then submitted to the standing committees, and the standing committees submitted reports to the Office of the Head of Public Service. The second biannual, 31st of March, from the agencies, and on 9th of April, we received the reports from the standing committees. If we move on to the next slide, so 2025, now last year's conference, the compliance rate of returns was 84.5%. What we're looking at now, we have received from yourselves, the regulators, 96% compliance. So, Head of Public Service, you recall, you raised a question and a challenge in the last conference. How can you be a regulator asking for compliance, yet you yourself cannot comply with a simple biannual report that is requiring you to fill and submit? So we have seen an increase, and of course, there's always a little failure, and we have 12 agencies, Your Excellency, out of the 129 who did not submit the reports as required. And of course, this is a concern for the 12, that is, because the same question that the Head of Public Service raised, we raise it again. You are a regulator. You require people to comply with certain standards or norms that you have set, yet you fail to comply despite follow-ups and reminders. So that is the status of compliance. So it has been impressive this year. So 96 in compliance and 4%, 96 compliance and 4% did not comply. We move on to the next slide. This is an interesting slide. And this slide is on mandate misalignment and its implications. Your Excellency, there are a number of entities that have classified themselves. In that tool, they have returned the returns, yes, and they're telling us, guys, we are implementers. And they call and say, we wrote to you, we are implementers, we do not regulate. But when we review their frameworks, there's a clear, or rather they have dual mandates. Yes, you are an implementer, but there's a provision in your law that gives you a regulatory mandate. And this now raises a critical concern, Your Excellency, when you have an entity that does not recognize its regulatory role. How then effective will that entity be in discharging that particular mandate? So you have ticks in all, you have, let's say, 9 mandates. You have ticks in 8, but 1 you do not have because you are an implementer and you don't want to get involved in the regulatory role. And I think one of the things that we're going to do, Your Excellency, is engage the few that have returned reports indicating they do not regulate. Some have even indicated we're in the process of changing the law to remove that provision. Others have said, by the way, if you give us funds, we are going to implement that particular mandate. So it's a conversation we will request Head of Public Service to guide us on how to engage the few that have clearly indicated we are not regulators. So it means basically the powers that you have, the statutory powers that you have are being utilized if you are not ticking performance on all of them. We have a very important session after this, Your Excellency, where some regulators will be talking to us on how they measure the impact of their regulatory mandate outside the government frameworks. And I think it will form a very important conversation at that point. So the concern that this raises is where an institution has misinterpreted its mandate, then there's a risk right there. And one of the issues of this conference is to ensure that there's alignment, as you have guided in your opening remarks, as well as from the Head of Public Service. Now, allow me to just spend 2 minutes, Your Excellency, on this very important slide on how your regulators have rated themselves. In every of these biannual reports, we request them rate yourself. So 24.5% rated themselves a perfect 10. And they have indicated, we checked all the parameters from our performance. It's a perfect 10. It's always that example when you ask a public servant to rate themselves, and you see a picture of the cat, which is a public servant, but when they're rating themselves, is a reflection in the mirror of a lion. That is what self-rating is. You are a cat, but because you have faith in yourself, you are seeing the lion. But here we have a challenge, Your Excellency. 52.5%, which is more than half, gave themselves a confident 8. So they said we were 8, and they gave a few reasons. If we get this, we fix this, we'll be 10. Now, 9.5%, it was a fair. They just said to go 5, 4. And again, reasons are given. And the 9.5% did not rate themselves. Your Excellency, these are the people who said we are not regulators. So in that tool, they said NA everywhere. So even the rating themselves, they did not rate themselves. And the question that begs is, the Head of Public Service has requested you to rate yourself. And it's an important slide because even those who rated themselves as fair, they gave certain reasons that the office is then able to pick up and facilitate to ensure that every regulator can rate themselves 8 and above. So the overall was self-confidence, majority were there, but we must explore, and part of this conference will be doing this, what top performance means and address those gaps that exist in self-assessment. And Your Excellency, even in those who rated themselves as 10, we must all ask ourselves, if I am a regulator and I'm rating myself as 10, does the ground reflect that 10? If I regulate a particular area or a sector, is that sector excellent or is that sector now at Singapore? Because if it's not, then you can't rate yourself at 10. So it is a scientific process that has to be done to ensure those self-ratings, and as Dr. indicated, we have to look at your rating in the last biannual and the last 3 biannual reports, so that when we analyze, we are getting value for what it is that what we need. If we move on to the next slide, I will not go through these in more than 30 seconds. These are some of the key factors that they indicated. This is working, and this is what is helping them rate themselves at 10. There are those who say we have digitized so many processes that were manual, that were slowing us down, and that's where we are at 8 to 10. There's risk-based models, and this is where the internal auditors come in and have really assisted in that. There are those who have said we are at 8 to 10 because you have clear plans, we have clear targets, we measure, and these are the results, and it's very clear. Stakeholder engagement, some of them sent us pictures and pictorials of them engaging their stakeholders. Those who said we are at this level because we have informed boards. The boards have been sensitized, they have been informed. We have capacity build our staff. We have better standardization, and of course the proactive enforcement. If we move on to the next slide, which is the barriers, those who are below, who are fair or lower, they said we do not have funding. Your Excellency, this has been a standing barrier from the first conference, from the first engagement. But also, Your Excellency, you will note that there are some entities that have gone beyond what it is that is provided for by government. They have found ingenious ways to get funds, particularly for their core mandate. So we have solutions for all these. They have been discussed. There's inadequate staffing. Again, the question will be thrown back to the board and the management. There were those who said it's a legacy backlog. We are still trying to clear what was done badly in the previous times, external dependency that elongate end-to-end timelines. Now, from number 5, Your Excellency, you have a regulator that says that we are doing so badly because we have manual and complex licensing processes. Yet the solution for that number 5 is within you. Those who had manual and complex licensing processes, is what they did. And actually, most of them have told us, we activated very simple digital processes to ensure we are efficient. There's poor technology integration. Again, the solution for this is within the regulator. Uncertainty due to new policy directives. It's those vague responses, Your Excellency, that someone would give, but it's not very clear what this means, but they were there. And then pending bills and operational interferences, and outdated acts and legislative pieces. There are those who have said, if you change our regulations, we will be able to regulate. If you expand our mandate, we will close the loop. If you close these other ones so that there's no overlap, we are going to be better. And the head of public service has been clear, where their mandates overlap, you synergize. We have seen it happen, Your Excellency, and I think part of the ones that have done very well in the construction center, where we have about 3-4 agencies coming together, forming a committee together with the ngaos, together with the police, so that they're able to move as one entire sector whenever they are doing whatever they need to do. I will not move on to, we can just go on to the last slide because of time. If we move on to the next slide. Okay, this slide, in just 2 seconds, 31%, there was a question in the questionnaire. Have you been recognized? Have you been recognized or rewarded or acknowledged? 31.5% said they had, and they gave instances and the evidence that because of our work, we have been recognized in the African continent, in the East African region, and so on. And that's 31.5%. So 31.5 of 129 have been recognized. Your Excellency, last year the number was much lesser, so there has been an improvement, and as a result of this campaign, we have seen more visibility of these regulators and also being recognized. Let's move on to the next slide. The next slide, we have some suggestions, and these ones came from the RAS. If we move on to the next slide, move on to the conclusion, the last slide. Previous slide, sorry. Just allow me to one of the suggestions here, besides the digital transformation overhaul, is the zero tolerance enforcement policy. And this is an element where it is your members of staff, it is your compliance officers, it is the people who you send out to ensure this compliance that make all the difference. And this again is in line with what was mentioned here earlier of that campaign that the head of public service has initiated of prompt corrective, lawful consequences, prompt corrective action and lawful consequences for infractions in the public service. So if you have officers who are not able to deliver within your mandate, enforcement officers, you never get to the 100% that is desired. We have quite a number of suggestions there, Your Excellency. Move on to the last slide. I'll conclude. I think I've taken more time than I had been given. But just to conclude, we spoke about the 96% compliance. The head of public service will, of course, deal with the 4% in a very special way. Of course, RAS, it's clear they are increasing, leveraging digital tools and stakeholder engagements. The key challenges that have persisted, we have indicated them, and the proposed radical measures, including the digital transformation, and finally, specific recommendations in governance, monitoring and evaluation, which we'll speak about in detail in this conference, stakeholder engagement, technological adoption, and provided targeted solutions. As I conclude, Your Excellency, the people sitting in this room are what we call the government. When people say, serikali kona mkono mrefu, Your Excellency, they're all in this room. From the finance sector, KRA is in this room. From the aviation sector, KCA is in this room. Environment sector, the government is in this room, Your Excellency. And if everyone does what they are supposed to do, we will have Kenya tuitakayo. I thank you.
Makofi tena. Your Excellency, just in case those presentations did not give you the reminiscence of your days in academia, just the next title alone will rekindle the good memory of your days as a professor. Now, the next presentation is going to be done by the senior advisor to the President on Constitutional Affairs, that is Professor Makau Mutua. Let's not clap yet, let's wait for the title. The title is even more captivating than the name. The title is the constitutional grounding for the setting of norms and standards and their enforcement by regulatory authorities and agencies. It feels like an introductory course in the social foundations of law. So for those of us who are seated in this room and they are not lawyers, please, you'll receive a certificate for participation. For Law Class 101, that is the social foundations of law. So please, let's pay attention for the next few minutes so that you can all receive your certificates. Karibu sana, Professor.
Thank you very much. When they elevate you, they intend to bring you down. So you should always be careful when they sing very many praises of you. Of course, with the exception of what the Deputy President said, Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Professor Kindiki, and my colleague in the legal profession and in the professoriate. Professor Kindiki is a thinker and an academic of no mean repute. And I just want to say that we never had a government in this country that is led by two PhDs. The president, of course, has a doctorate, and so does the professor here. And so therefore it is, if you want to think about it this way, it is a thinking government from the very top. But one thing that humbled me and almost brought me to tears was the very kind words that the Deputy President said about me. As he knows very well, when you go to the academy, you don't go there to get accolades. You go there to think, and you go there to help society, because society is the one that educated you. And for me, and I think for him as well, because we come from the part of the world that used to be called the third world, our scholarship is not done to amuse ourselves. It is done to help our societies. And, you know, so I want to say I'm so pleased to see a professor in this hallowed office of the Deputy President. And I want to say that you set a good example, that there is hope, for some of us, that you can transition from academia to high office. I also want to thank my good friend Felix for inviting me to say a few words here at this conference. I don't take it for granted, Felix. I appreciate it very much. And I can see from the presentations that have been made here that a lot of work has gone into reforming the regulatory state that is there in Kenya. I wanted to say that for most of my life, I've existed outside the state. In fact, in contest against the state. And at one point, some of you may not know, I was actually exiled by the state of Kenya. Today, I find myself in a very peculiar space because I am now working inside the state. And I want to say that part of what makes my work easier within the state is because of folks like the Deputy President. This is a thinking government. I don't think that I could have survived. I don't think that I could have survived in any other government prior to this period. If I had tried, I would have lasted 1 second. But today, I'm not here to tell you how to do your jobs or to lecture you on the minutiae of the administrative state. The administrative state, as you know, in some countries is called the deep state, meaning that it is that part of the government that is perpetual and that keeps the state going. It does what has to be done to keep the country going. It is the brain trust of the country. So your duty as regulators is really sacred. And your duty is one that must be taken with all seriousness, as the Deputy President actually said. But I just want to map out for you a few things for you to consider, because I don't want to lecture for too long. The first thing that we should understand, to ask ourselves, is what kind of a state are we in? What kind of state do we have in Kenya? Because unless you understand this fundamental question, you will not be able to understand the purpose of your job. Not how to do your job, not how to count things, not how to categorize things, not how to see like a state, but what kind of a state are you in? And what is the purpose of the state that we call Kenya today? And I want to say that we are not a nation. I want us to begin there. We are a state, we have a government, we have a country. But we are not a nation yet. We are a nation in embryo, meaning that we are like a child who is being baked in their mother's womb. And I say this as a student of the African state, and as the Deputy President knows, he's also a student of the African state, and the others in the audience I'm sure are. This is not a state that we ourselves created. It's a state that was forced on us by others. And since 1963, we have been trying to tame this state, to make it ours. States can be either benign or malign. They can be either benign or malign. Because a state essentially is a creature of violence. I want to repeat that. The state is a creature of violence. But I also want to say that not all violence is bad. Okay? And you can quote me on that. State is a creature of violence that oscillates between being benign and being malign. It oscillates between those two pendulums, of being malign or being benign. And the purpose of the state is three arms of government: the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary, is to submit itself to the people. That is the predicate of the 2010 Constitution, to subject itself to the people who are sovereign, as the Deputy President has so eloquently talked about in many forums and written about. This is the first objective of the state: to understand that the people who live in it are not subjects, that they are citizens. That the colonial state treated us as subjects. And since 1963, what we've been trying to do is to transform ourselves from subjects to citizens. Subjects have no rights. Citizens do. Subjects do not control their destiny. Citizens do. Subjects do not control their state. Citizens do. So this is one overarching normative lesson that regulatory agencies and authorities must understand. That you are not here to superintend over citizens. You are not here to imagine that you are more important than the citizen, because the highest office in the land is not the office of the president, it's not the office of the deputy president, it is not the office of the directors of agencies. The highest office is the office of the citizen. So this is the fundamental lesson that I think all agencies must understand. And it is a movement, a transformational movement, both culturally, intellectually, and mentally, that agencies must learn to decolonize the state, to decolonize power, to decolonize attitudes of authority. This is the first lesson that we must understand. Because otherwise, the state will become a leviathan. The state will become a leviathan. The leviathan is a sea monster that is very difficult to control. Okay? In a sense, the colonial state was a leviathan. And to a large extent, and I challenge you to think otherwise, or to challenge me back, our post-colonial state, for the most part, has also been a leviathan. So what we did in 2010 was to take both normative, practical, legal, and constitutional steps to transform our state from being a leviathan to being a state of the people, to help us cohere as one nation, to help us develop a national consciousness as a people, what the Germans call a national zeitgeist, a national consciousness, which says that we are Kenyans. We are Kenyans, whether we come from Tharaka Nithi, whether we come from Kitui, whether we come from Samburu, whether we come from Wajir. We are Kenyans. And without that fundamental belief and submission to that notion, and the transfer of our loyalties from our identities into the idea of Kenya, your regulatory agencies will not perform because you'll be tribalized. You'll be driven by ethnic calumny and bias. And no matter how much paper you push, you can never overcome it if you don't have a national consciousness as a public servant. You must have that zeitgeist as a Kenyan. That is number one. Number two, the state that we got to defang and reform the post-colonial state, and it's been a very long journey, decenters the state from public life. Imagine that. The 2010 Constitution decenters the state from public life and puts the citizen at the center of public life. The 2010 Constitution is a constitution of permission, not a constitution of prohibition. As a normative value in the 2010 Constitution, it's a constitution of permission, not prohibition. And the reason why it is a constitution of permission is because the colonial state was not a state of permission. You know, if you ask your grandparents, they will tell you that Africans were not permitted to drink commercial beer. In fact, when Kenyatta came from the UK, he used to sneak into the house of, into Yash Guy's house, the father of Yash Guy, because Yash Guy, because the father could buy bottled beer, and he could not, which he had been drinking in England. And so he would sneak in there to get his shots of beer. That's a constitutional prohibition, a state of prohibition. Ours now is a constitutional permission. So as regulators, you normatively approach the citizen as though he has permission to do something. You don't start by thinking that he is prohibited from doing something. Sio kumwambia hapana. No. You have to try to accommodate the wishes of the citizen. And what is the purpose of all of this? The purpose of all of this is to maximize happiness among the people. You as regulators, whether you like it or not, your job really is to maximize happiness. Did you know that? It's to make me happy, not to make me sad. When I come to your office, I want to go away whistling in the wind in happiness because you have served me as a citizen. It is a constitution that wants to maximize our potential as individuals. For those who are believers, they will say our God-given potential as citizens. And unless you are fair, unless you apply the law equally and without bias, unless you curb your appetite to be an overlord, you cannot succeed in that mission. The third value in the Constitution is to curb power. We understand curbing power generally in the doctrine of separation of powers, of checks and balances. But that is very abstract because you see courts, you see the executive, and then you see the legislature. But it is really in your institutions as regulators where these matters come to life, where the law is really applied. We can pass all the most beautiful laws in the country. We can have the most beautiful constitution. But unless in your heart the power is curbed, in your heart that you intellectually submit to the constitutional confines of official power, we can never do that. That will lead us to wastage of public resources. It will lead us to corruption. It will lead us to unethical conduct, and it will lead us to corruption. I said that we are a state in embryo, a post-colonial state that is trying to become a nation. we are not going to become a nation unless the majority of our people come out of poverty. It is not possible at all. We shall be mired in the third world, and in many cases in Kenya, in the fourth world, because that still does exist in this country. That is not a country that can produce citizens. That country produces subjects. And so your job as regulators is to be a public trust for the resources of this country, as public trust, so that we can have things to reinvest in our people. You know, so that, you know, when you go to the United States or to Europe, you stop posting pictures of yourself at the airport. It is not an achievement. It is not. I haven't seen people posting pictures of themselves when they go to Bangui or they go to Bujumbura. But wait until they land in New York. They'll flood Facebook with all kinds of pictures. We want to be proud of our country. Okay? And so to do that, we must stop wastage. We must stop corruption. And it starts with your agencies. Your agencies cannot be a toll station for public service. You cannot demand a kickback or a fee for doing that which you are mandated to do. And if you do that, you don't deserve to be in public office. I want to commend the Deputy President for one thing. I've listened to many of his speeches and read many of his writings. And the school of thought that he referenced to, TWAIO, Third World Approaches to International Law, of which I'm one of the founders, along with another Kenyan called James Gathi, who teaches in Chicago. That school seeks to deconstruct power and hegemony, so that power and hegemony can go away and be used in a humane way. The Deputy President, in his writings, I've distilled his, his philosophy of the state. I don't know whether he knows that I've done this, but I've done it. He thinks of a state of empathy, not a state of antipathy. That's what he thinks about. I was worried for him when he was Minister for Interior, because that's a very tough ministry. But he did not disappoint me. Because also, we must understand that we have a country. And if we have no country, there's nothing to protect. And so sometimes we have to apply the law to make sure that the country remains stable. I want to conclude with a few remarks. One is I have seen the indexes, the matrices of performance that have been put forward here. And they're very good. And I commend, the Chief of Staff for this vision. But I also want to say that, do you know what citizens think about what you are doing? Because we've said that the citizens are sovereign. Do you know what they think? Because you cannot just come here and grade yourselves and give yourselves an A. I think I saw someone giving themselves an A. You cannot do that. And you cannot grade yourselves in front of your peers because you are conflicted. I want you to ask citizens what they think about what you've done. Ask them. Apply some scientific method of assessing what our citizens think about what you've done, how you are performing, not just with this particular, transformation effort, HOPS, but going beyond, today. What do citizens think about our regulatory agencies? What do they think should be changed? Okay? Because one of the values in the new constitution, of course, as you know, is public participation. What do they think? And if you can answer that question, you'll be able to answer the next question that I'm going to put to you. And that next question is the one that was asked by the late Honorable Raila Odinga in an executive retreat last year. I think the Deputy President, you were there. Of course, Hobbs, you presented very ably there. And the question that was asked there was, as civil servants, as public servants, are we carrying the people along? Are we carrying the people along? What do the people think? Perhaps we are not supposed to be talking politics here. But all life is political. Don't let anyone lie to you. All life is political. Our ability to execute these great ideas, the beta program, and all of them, will depend on what the people think in 2027. What do they think? Okay? Are we carrying the people along? I leave it there. Thank you so much.
Another round of applause for Professor Makao Mutua. We can do better than that, Jameni. Thank you, Professor. Your Excellency, our chief guest, our host, kindly allow me to lead this next session, and with your permission, this next session is, as you can see on your programs, is the photo session. And since I do not want to be reprimanded, I will ask my boss to ask his boss to stand up so he can lead him to where the photo session will be. So let us be upstanding as our host leads our chief guest out, followed by the PSS. Everybody else kindly remain where you are as we allow that first group to exit. Na tunaweza mpigia makofi anapotoka kwa hema.
Right, ready? And in 3, 2, 1. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Thank you. Now the PSS will step aside, then you have all the chairs.
Check.
Proceed. Is it morning? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Are we ready? Are we ready? Thank you very much. Yes, as you're aware, we are here at Seku since this morning in a very important exercise which has been convened by the Office of the President. What we have here is an annual meeting of all government agencies that deal with regulation. And by regulation, I mean the government agencies that assist the people of Kenya, the citizens of Kenya, to acquire what they require to do business or to also participate in national life. So we have regulators from all sectors, from agriculture, energy, food, and so forth and so forth. We have about 127 regulatory agencies that are meeting here. As I have said, this is the third annual meeting where we meet to look at the progress made and the impact we are creating to our people. And I think the next 3 days, these colleagues here, led by the head of public service and the PSCs who are in charge of the various state departments where these regulators are anchored, will be able to canvass what has been achieved in the last 1 year. The place of what we are discussing here is at the center of our constitutional order and our national life, because citizens of this country interact with government in terms of how government is able to assure them that the environment is protected, the water bodies are safe from pollution, the houses being constructed are regulated by the relevant agencies to make sure that they are safe. And so for us, this is where the rubber meets the road, if I may say so. This is where citizens interface with government on a daily basis and realize that since regulators wield a lot of statutory and constitutional authority, it's always good for us in the whole of government to assemble ourselves every year and even in between to make sure that we are doing the right thing, and this right thing is impacting on the citizens of this country, receiving feedback from ourselves but also from other stakeholders. And we've been challenged this morning that one of the things we need to do more is also to encourage feedback from members of the public on what they need, what they think should be done better to regulate our environment, our natural resources, our education, our health, and all the other spaces that are represented here. So it's a very important point for reflection. And we've had an opening session this morning where we've been reminded why this is important. We've been reminded that our country is run by a constitution that places the people at the center of everything that we do, and what government functionaries and agencies do or should do is to facilitate the people and not to prohibit the people from realizing their potential. So we've had a very good broad view of things at the start, so that we understand the nature of our country the constitutional and legal foundations on which it is based, and the ethics and the theory that should help us as public servants to serve the people. Because the people are bigger than government. You know, that's the first lesson we've just been taught by our senior here, Professor Mutua, that the people are superior to government, and government exists to serve the people. Number two, even as we talk about regulation, we are just facilitating the people to realize their socio-economic potential. We are not trying to inhibit them from doing this and doing this. And the presumption is that the citizens are entitled to what they are seeking to do unless there are constraining factors. There is a presumption of the legitimacy of their pursuit. And we've had a very good starting point. And I'm looking forward, although I may not be there throughout, through the colleagues who are remaining behind, we are looking forward to a lot of useful lessons that we can pick as servants of the people, as government functionaries, so that our service delivery ideology is wired in line with the constitutional paradigms that govern our country, so that we don't become the bosses of the people. We become servants of the people as we are, and presume that the people should be given priority over the offices we hold and the functions that we perform in the public sector. So we are very happy to be part of this, and we are grateful to SECU for giving us this wonderful environment for reflection and for cross-pollination of ideas. We are extremely grateful, and this just speaks to how successful our nation has come, how far we've come. You know, in Kitui County here, you have this kind of a facility that can host all these senior people. And I think these institutions that we are putting across the country will help us even achieve some of the national objectives that we are looking at in our journey to move into the first world. We've also been reminded of the need for us to know that the things that we look for as a nation will not be possible unless we fight poverty and make the citizen empowered. If you have large sections of the citizens not able to assert themselves, not empowered, especially from the bondage of poverty, many of the things that we want to do and to see will not happen. And I think on this note is a good place for me to say that this Kitui, this SECU and this Kitui has given us a very good opportunity. However, we know recently there was a small but quite consequential security issue here when we lost some people in this county. I think just slightly over a week ago, and we are taking that incident extremely seriously as government. And I think it's a good place for me when I'm in Kitui to say that what happened recently in this county is a serious infraction on our stability as a nation. We are taking every effort to make sure that those who are responsible for the death of quite a number of Kenyans, we take action. But more importantly, we want to make sure that we don't have incidents like this reoccurring, because they push us backwards. After we've taken some steps forward, this kind of happenings push us backwards. And therefore, on behalf of the government of Kenya and on behalf of our security managers, I want to give the assurance to the people of Kitui that we will return normalcy and sustain normalcy. It is barbaric for citizens to kill one another for whatever reason, for people just to wake up and take weapons and go and use those weapons on their own fellow countrymen and women. It is barbaric. It pushes us backwards. And therefore we are taking that very seriously, and already some progress has been made in terms of accountability, but we will not be satisfied until finally we get rid of ourselves. We get rid of this kind of problems from our midst. And I know as a former security minister, I've been in this part of the country many times. We've had similar incidents. The current one was between residents of Tana River and residents of Kitui. We've had similar incidents between residents of Kitui and the recent one was Garissa, Kitui, but we have also had incidents between Tana River and Kitui and many other parts of our country that still have a tenuous security environment, which we must firm up and make sure that our country is safe, it is secure, it gives dignity to people, and when they wake up in the morning, they don't expect that another citizen will come from nowhere with a gun, with a knife, and end their life in a brutal manner. So I thought I should mention that while I'm here, but that is what brought us here. If there is one question, I can take it, because I don't want to keep these colleagues here for long, so that we go back and continue with our deliberations.
Your Excellency, speaking about the insecurity in this part of the country, I'm sure you are aware about the number of people who have died. Can you talk to the country about the specific actions? And again, we've had politicians saying they own camels all over, and the residents of this region have been pleading the government to get those camels out of their places, out of their farms, out of the neighboring game parks and reserves. What is the government position on this?
The position of government, first and foremost, is peaceful coexistence among the people of Kenya. Secondly, the position of government from a security standpoint is that the ever-occurring incidents of conflicts between pastoralists, farmers, and other resource issues that bring this kind of incidents, we must find a permanent solution. And I don't think anybody has a right to graze another person's crops to save their livestock from death. As much as saving livestock from death is a legitimate objective, it cannot be used as a basis of violating the property rights of other people. We've already started by saying we live in a country that is guided by law and certain constitutional norms. And as much as this constitution empowers every citizen and gives them rights, your right ends at the point where my right starts. And therefore, anybody who thinks they have the right to punch or throw punches in the air must know that that right to throw punches in the air ends where my nose starts. That is the position of government. The position of government is that livestock keepers, farmers, traders, all manner of people have a legitimate right to pursue their socio-economic empowerment, but not at the risk of the rights of other people. So we've made some progress in terms of immediate accountability, but as I've said, it's not enough just to punish the wrongdoer. That's not enough. It's the starting point. The starting point is to make sure that that interface between livestock and crops is sustainably managed. And I think our managers here, security officials, have been instructed on what to do. And the relevant ministry is seized of the matter. And the instructions that the government has given is that that should extend to the other places where we have similar issues, so that we should not just say we are doing this because of Kitui, and then tomorrow something else arises in another part of the country. So that's what we are doing. Maybe one last one.
Mr. Deputy President, these repeated killings have happened not once, not twice. Perhaps as a senior government official, could you tell the nation who has been arming these camel pastoralists or whatever they are, and what is the long-term solution that as a government you plan to disarm the pastoralists, or are we going to see another scenario of kicking them out and then coming back again at the same time? Because it has happened while you are still the Interior Minister.
And just like that one, Your Excellency, when,
Yes.
when a senior cabinet secretary goes public to say that he owns camels, is that not an admission of guilt on the part of government? And how are you dealing with the perception down here?
How is owning camels a crime?
Because the camels, the owners of those camels are the ones killing people.
Let me respond as
it
follows.
creates an image of political instigation and all that.
Let me first say that we should not politicize crime. That is the easiest shortcut to losing the war against crime. And for all recurrent crimes, crimes that keeps on reoccurring, whether it's banditry, terrorism, and other forms of organized crime, the easier excuse is the politicization. Instead of breaking down the infrastructure of crime and violence in a long-term manner. And that's why I've insisted on a long-term sustained approach, because even if a particular incident is addressed and people are taken to court and are jailed for life, then tomorrow there will be another attack, and the other day there will be another attack. And I like the way you put it, that we've had a similar incident like that before, and I've been here several times. There are some measures we took that time that gave us quite a lot of progress. But still, the nature of these conflicts and these criminal activities is that they require long-term solutions, which we are working on. And the same way we have been able to suppress banditry significantly, the same way we have been able to suppress terrorism in the Boni Enclave, northern Kenya for a while. I believe even these resource conflicts and criminals hiding under resource conflicts to perpetuate crime, we will crack them. Even between there is a political leader or a member of government who is involved, that should not be a difficult thing, because you know crime is just crime. That's how the way I look at it. You remember 3 years ago we had a lot of politics around banditry, but that politics we were able to keep away and take it away from that problem that was affecting our people. So I want to assure the people of Kitui, we will make sure you're safe. The government has directed all those who are responsible to make sure that this should not be treated as just an incident, but it should be seen as a window to firm our hand as government, not for Kitui County alone, but for the rest of the country. And nobody, as I have said, has a right to infringe on the right of others simply because they are pursuing their rights. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon. Uwe na siku njema.